Is this the weather you usually have in Cairo? No. In Africa, you go into the sunny Egypt, and here I am in the middle of it's colder than Torino. So please. But thank you very much for having me here. Thank you to ICANN for organizing all this, but in particular, and of course Ajit organization. It's fantastic to be here with all of you today. The idea is to cover some of the issues together. So it's supposed to be an interactive kind of presentation. So the idea is to go over some presentation about myself. So you know who's bothering you for the next afternoon, part of the morning, next afternoon, and tomorrow morning. Then we go on discussing the main uses and abuses on trademark online. And we'll be dealing with the social media. I thought that was a topic which is rather new, but of interest that we can maybe all together examine. Then we go over the uniform dispute resolution policy. This is, of course, the main topic, the juice of our presentation today. And we go over tomorrow on the WIPO experience, because I thought we should share some of the experience that WIPO was enjoying in this kind of field. And then the final part of the presentation, which is scheduled for tomorrow afternoon, is going to be, actually late morning, is going to be some practical experience that we share together in my firm, and basically discussing together which are the strategies to enforce trademarks online. So this is basically the menu of the late morning, afternoon, and tomorrow morning that we are to deal together. I'm very much in favor of very interactive kind of presentation. So please do ask questions. Do not hesitate to interrupt me in any occasion if deemed appropriate. Let's make a discussion to keep each other awake for the rest of the afternoon and the day. Well, when everything started, I was hoping to have this working, but unfortunately it's not working. Maybe it's out of battery, but we get a battery afterwards. The company which I have established, and so I'm in front of you, but I have to operate some of this. That's why I usually use the remote if it is working. So the firm was established in 2000, so I'm a trademark attorney. You might search for a battery if you have any. Hold on. The firm which I've established was established in 2000, so it's not as experienced and as large as the organization we're in. I used to be an IP attorney in a large IP firm in Italy, and I thought, IP on the internet, that's something that could be interesting. And I was crazy enough to start my own company 16 years ago. Leaving a fantastic position as a partner of this large corporation like Ajit in Italy. It's not as big as Ajit, but it's the largest in Italy. We have a different office we had, not me anymore, but Jacobacci was my firm. I was working with Dr. Guidi Jacobacci, which is like Mr. in here. But well, that was a challenge for me, and I thought that I should share this story because it sets the scene, helps you to understand who is talking to you today and how we can share our experience together. So the idea was to focus on some specific issues, and these are the ones. So my firm does only abusive domain registrations, which are and were rather important back then. We focus on trademark and copyright infringement online. We dealt and we're dealing with a lot and more on the sale on counterfeit goods, which is happening online. Everyone is buying online nowadays. Even big brands are now present. Everyone was sort of saying, well, I will never go to sell my Prada goods online. There you go, starting. Gucci did the largest turnover ever on online sales last year, just to give you an idea of the dimension. And of course, the larger the business is, the more the pirates are interested in this kind of issues. Then, of course, the issues are developing, and trademarks, misappropriation, and identity theft on social media networks. This is getting more and more a problem. We deal a lot nowadays with abuse of IP rights on smartphone and tablet applications, because that's actually the way that every one of us is now connected to the internet. Therefore, we need to have ongoing monitoring and enforcement there as well. Last but not least, AdWords and keywords advertising. So in these years, we did over 16,000 cases on domain names matters. And this is my firm, and this some of the dream team I have in Italy. It's not as big as it. We have only 15 people in the group, and that's my associates and my partners over there. And this is basically the team focusing on the topic that I mentioned before. But as I'm completely crazy, as you could probably understand, I decided to add as well a registrar operation. Thank you very much, Dave. A registrar operation in UK. And oh, fantastic! And then, in order to be able to enjoy the ICANN traveling worldwide and to be participating in the ICANN activities, I established a company based in London dealing with domain registrations. So the UK company is a accredited registrar in different jurisdictions and does domain registration for corporate clients. We do as well search and monitoring, which can be a good tool as well for companies like ours dealing with intellectual property in general and online to develop the business to assist better our clients. And the idea as well is to try sometimes to have a confidential acquisition. We'll see tomorrow afternoon that sometimes you don't have a way to get a domain name by enforcing your rights. Therefore, you have to have some tools and systems and companies who can approach the owner and acquire it for you. And this is done as well. The new generative government, just mentioned by my colleague a few minutes ago, is booming, is getting big, and that is witnesses the growth of the new generative developments nowadays. So there were 1,930 applications in June 2012, much to the surprise of ICANN management as well. We were expecting about 500 to say the most, but we ended up having 1,930 applications, and for each application, $185,000 had to be paid, just as a fee to participate in the process. Of course, then on top of that, so just give you the dimension of the kind of issues we're dealing with. So trademark in-house was a good tool introduced to help IP owners to sort of defend their rights in this kind of environment. And that's what we do. And then we do we work a lot with law firms, and that's sometimes for Italian companies. It's just embarrassing to have a UK company as a partner in this kind of business system client. So we do use my UK attorneys and UK staff to assist law firms worldwide. So this is basically the structure for domain registrations. And this goes on because, of course, we need as well good technicians. So establish another company with one of my historical partners dealing with domain names. And there's the two of us starting a new business, dealing with the new generation of problems that we have in online. So this is basically the structure that I created 16 years ago, which led me, honestly, somehow to my surprise, to acquire clients like this ones that you may be familiar with. And this is the first group of clients which I've entrusted with our firm, the domain names management, the monitoring, and the enforcement. So the three main areas in which we are active with by different companies. And I think most of them are familiar to you. Barilla is producing pasta. These are Italian brands, Valentino, you know, most of them, Morellato, Maserati, cars, Kinder, Ferrero. So it's a sort of good group, Versace and Ferrari. Have you heard Ferrari? Good. And this is pretty much what we have as domain names. And then we have a second group of clients, which have entrusted with us only the monitoring and the enforcement of the rights online. So basically, I will share with you, and for your eyes only, some of the actual activities that we do for these clients. This is somehow the full list of the two groups, basically, that we assist in this kind of topics. So, long story short, it's one of my favorite slides because it shows that the hard work pays, and it's a general rule that I'd like to share with all of you. Nothing is impossible if you wish and willing to work hard. I started alone 15 years ago. Now we have a team. I've acquired clients that we like very much. So how do we do it? Well, plenty of problems ongoing online. So let's see how now the trademarks are used and abused online. Because in order to talk about this, we have to have an idea on this kind of issues. So, how do you use a trademark online? Any ideas? Let's get into it. Which are the main uses of trademark online? Advertisement. Good. Domain names. Excellent. Let's see if we manage to get them all. And Any other ideas? You disqualify. It's fine.
Keep my business identity.
Business identity, yes. It's a workshop. We have to be brainstorming. Yeah? Well,
You're asking about the mic.
you're what?
You're asking about the mic. If it's
About
working or
mic?
not.
Is it working? Do you hear me?
Yeah, yeah.
Thanks. So this is basically it. I mean, there are some others, but I was highlighting some of the issues. And before we dwell into the use of a trademark online, I thought that we should shortly cover, following up what my colleagues said before, the differences between trademarks and domain names, just to underline which are the main issues that was just brilliantly explained to you this morning, if they do apply or not in the internet arena. So, highlighting the main issues of domain names and trademarks, I was focusing my attention on the capability to distinguish, which was described before, the territoriality, these are another main characteristic of trademark, and I picked for you the reference to specific goods or services. Yeah? So these are three of the main characteristics of trademark that we have to deal with on a daily basis in our practice, but every user, every brand owner has to deal with in deciding the strategy to follow to protect effectively the trademarks online. So, what about capability to distinguish? Well, of course we know that the capability to distinguish, explained this morning, is the possibility for a sign to be associated with a specific product, right? It has to be able to be associated with this specific company in order to establish the relationship. Producer, trademark. Capability of distinguishing one product from another. And explain this should be distinctive, even though there are a bit complicated or some secondary meaning. I don't want to go too much in details, but basically, if you use a trademark, it can be weak at the beginning, or even null and void because it's restricted. Intensively, in advertising, you bombard every day everyone with a constant advertising message. This trademark becomes distinctive, acquires distinctiveness, and therefore is going to be able to produce this effect of us recognizing, oh, this must be produced by this company, right? But in general, the trademark should be capable of distinguishing, right? One of the pillars of trademark. What about domains? What do you think? Does it apply to domain names?
Yes.
Yes, it does. Any other ideas?
Should represent the table.
Right, but as a domain name, well, actually, unfortunately not, because the opposite is actually true for domain names. We don't apply this pillar of trademarks law on the internet arena, because domain names like business or pizza are very much valuable. And you don't have any bar to registering according to the principle of first come, first served, as long, of course, you don't infringe some third-party trademarks. But you cannot register pizza for pizzas, as I mentioned, or business because it's generic term. Therefore, in the internet arena, generics are very interesting and can be valuable. Actually, sex.com was sold for $13 million, or funds.com was sold for close to $10 million. To a website, easy to remember, immediate for you as an internet user to have access to. So this is first very important difference between trademarks and domain names. This makes our life as IP attorneys even more challenging. You don't have this possibility to bar someone to use a trademark like this. What about, that is the website of funds. What about territoriality? You know that a trademark should be referred to a specific territory. This can either be the territory of Egypt, or Italy, or France, or through different agreements, like the Madrid agreement I was mentioning before, is the one regulating the international registration, which is handled by the WIPO, World Intellectual Property Organization, which in essence works in this way. You have to have a valid trademark, as mentioned before, in one country, and if you want to extend in one of the 97 members of the Madrid protocol and agreement, you simply have to go to WIPO, and then we'll take care of sending the application to Egypt, France, and if you have a bar in one country, that country is not going to be protected, but you can have the international registration in the other countries. You have as well the community trademark, or European community trademark. Have you heard about it? No? Okay, it's a trademark which is valid in the 28 countries of the European Union. You have a single procedure. You file your application in Alicante, in Spain, and you obtain protection in 28 countries. Obviously, if you have one bar in one country, it has an identical trademark or is similar for the same goods or services, you cannot have the protection of the 28 countries because 28 countries are intended as a whole, as a single territory, while the international registration can be valid in some of the member states and not in others. Right? Of course, you have to have the central registration valid, but that was mentioned already before. But this, again, is a territory. One country, international, European Union, still we have a boundary where you can enforce your rights. You can say, well, I can have Barbero as a trademark in Egypt, and nobody else can use Barbero for my services. Right? But what about domain names? Does this principle of territoriality apply to domain names? Again, no. Correct. So you can have access to any domain names worldwide by typing on your browser www.barbero.eg or com.eg and have access to my website based in Italy, from Timbuktu, from wherever you wish. So again, another big challenge. Trademarks, territoriality, does not apply to the internet. Gets complicated, isn't it? What about, let's say, some hope? Issue of the specific goods or services. It was mentioned before, we have this classification list, categorizing the products and services in 45 classes. But again, you can have a large protection if it's a well-known trademark. It was mentioned. Everything is perfect, but again, is referred to a specific good or service. You can have identical trademarks, like Fiesta is a good example. There's a car made by Ford, and there's as well a cake made by Ferrero. Are you familiar with Nutella, Rocher? Well, they do as well. I love it. I do love it. But they do as well a small cake, which is fantastic. I don't know what they have in many countries. It's Fiesta. Same trademark, same brand, same name, but of course different product. And nobody would think that Ferrero started producing cars, nor that Ford was suddenly making cakes. So everyone is happy. You can sell Fiesta in different markets, and there's no problem whatsoever. What about, well, and the large protection, of course, refers to the well-known trademark. So you have maybe a Coca-Cola or Gucci or Ferrari registered for some specific brands, but it gets so well known by us consumers that enjoys the so-called enlarged protection. It becomes a well-known trademark. So you don't need to have a trademark registration for the specific goods or services to get protection for that brand. Right? That's an exception to the rule. The rule is always you claim for clothing, 25, perfume, and you get protection for those brands. What about the internet? It's one top-level domain. On the internet you have one top-level domain, and a domain name should be unique within the same top-level domain. Are you familiar with generic top-level domains and country code top-level domains? Yeah? There's two big groups. You have the generics, started with the original 7, then we have 22, and that was basically something we were happy with for years, until we came up in 2012 with the possibility to have the new generic top-level domains. Now we opened up this environment of generic top-level domains to over 1,000 now. The 1,930 turned out to be 1,500 in total. So we'll be basically having, and we are having already, over almost 1,000 generic top-level domains that we can use. You have the bank, you have the hotel, you have you name it. You have as well 664 brands. I was having a set of slides on this one, but I thought we were covering. So I just sharing some of the information which are important for you, because you have to know now that the dimension of the problems that we are analyzing now under the legal perspective is going to be much larger in the future. Simply because what we had to deal with for 22 domain names, now we're dealing for 1,000. Maybe not all of them, because for instance, the 664 brands are closed to the brand. I assisted Gucci to find the Gucci application and will not accept anyone else registering Luca.Gucci or Barbero.Gucci because it's a closed registry. But we have thousands of other registration in the generic ones. Website. I'll tell you, you really name it. There's a fantastic place to check that one. So this is basically true for trademarks. And then we have the country code, which are 280 about. And you know, are typical of each country, each regulation. Who is actually handling the .eg? You. There you go. I was expecting you. So basically, you have a set of regulation, you have your rules, and likewise in different countries of the world, you may have some limits. Everyone is welcome to register.eg, or you have to have a local presence.
If you are registering directly under .eg as a second level, you have a representative here in Egypt. But
right.
If you register under .com, for example, there is no need to have a representative in Egypt.
Right. See, so this is an example. Now the rule can vary in different countries. So .it, for instance, you have to have a limit of 64 digits, and you have to be a member of the European Union. You cannot file a .it if you are based only in Egypt, unfortunately. You may have, of course, a local representative. Like my UK company does a lot of registration for clients on a fiduciary basis because it established the local presence. But these are requirements typical for the country code of domains. But again, we have 280. Now we're talking about over 1,000. So this is just to give you some figures in mind of the dimensional problems that we're facing, of the kind of issues that can be facing a trademark owner in operating on the internet in this kind of environment. So this is an example of Fiesta. Sure enough, neither Ford nor Ferrero has got it. It's got a third party, which is basically pointing to this generic use of Fiesta, probably waiting for some people of the Ford or Ferrero to buy it at some point. Last issues I want to deal with, the legitimacy of the ownership. Well, who can then have Fiesta.com between Ferrero and Ford?
Whoever comes first.
Correct. Both of them. Both of them enjoy the same rights. Because what you need is sometimes to produce a trademark registration, but sometimes you simply to arrive first to apply for a domain name. And in this case, basically, none of them, as I mentioned, is using it. Some companies, like a law firm, decided to share it, so basically to have a common domain name. But the idea is basically the legitimate owner is the one arrives first. So it's really rare, the example of this one having a company, Bouillon, sharing the Bouillon.com here for Switzerland and Italy. Usually, who comes first gets the domain name.com, which is of course the most coveted one. Still millions of registrations as opposed to others, we're talking in thousands. So this is basically the background on how we're dealing with trademarks and domain names. And you see how complex this issue can be, because you're not having some of the pillars of trademark rights on your side, and you basically have to create the law and find ways to solve problems. So let's start our view. Let me know when the lunch will be ready, because I think we're scheduled for 12:30, so I don't want to take too much time, and this is a part I was supposed to cover this afternoon. But the idea was to start maybe analyzing with you some of the way domain names are used, and you mentioned some of them, and those are the ones that are listed. You use trademarks on emails. Lot. And you using yahoo.com, that's a trademark. So you have the domain name, lucabarbero@yahoo.com. You use that as a trademark. You use it as a banner. You use it as a pop-up windows. These are system. You use it more and more as a keyword in AdSense. use trademarks on dedicated website was mentioned. How to establish your presence. Well, of course, in light of the plethora of extensions that we will have, it will be more and more relevant to have the trademark corresponding to trademark, to the domain name corresponding to trademark in the actual domain name itself. Because an any dedicated website will help us, consumer, to get to the right website and not to the wrong one, where many of the counterfeiters are going. But let's start with the use of emails. So the use is typical. Many companies use emails to send you dedicated information. Being a fan and a client, Ferrari sends me all the information that they issue every week, as well as sales. And of course, the same does Valentino and others. I'm such a good customer of Vodafone that they even send me the happy birthday email. This gives how much money I spend in all this roaming I'm doing in the world. And this is fine as a use. This was a company, sorry, it's in Italian as an example, but just to tell you the story of a company knowing that I'm a law firm and I can be interested in the publication they do, so they do send us an email to our company advertising their activities. But what about an email using trademarks for promoting counterfeit goods? It's an email, a prestige replica. We said Rolex, Cartier, watches, Breitling, Bulgari, Omega. This is an abuse. You see it on a daily basis in a smart folder, but this is a way in which some of the addressee of this email can start saying, okay, this could be an interesting. I don't want to buy an original one, I can get a replica, and I buy it here. Don't do that, of course. We are in the temple of IP, but sometimes it's happening. What about, this was a spanning ongoing some years ago, but some of the CEO and CFO of many companies have received this. I don't know, any of your clients experience this kind of email sent by a company telling, well, there's another company about to register this domain name for your trademark dot whatever. Even my firm, small law firm, got this email to say that someone, apparently based in China, Micheo Holdings Inc., you believe it, was interested in registering studiobarbero.asia, .com, .cn, .hk, etc. Incredible. But this is happening. This is an abuse. And this, many of the CEO receiving these emails, they take out and say, well, what is this all about? Well, please, do register them all, or cover some of them. So this is an experience which is ongoing. So make sure, well, the answer to this kind of emails are the following. A, let them know you are not entitled to register the domain name because it says register trainer. Barbero is a service trainer. So you cannot do that, and you should not do that. And B, in some of the jurisdiction is of interest for your client, maybe use the services to register it first. Because it's always a bit more complicated to get the domain name back. So it should be a good balance of striking with a low instrument as well of domain names protection. And this is another example, barbero.net.cn is a third level domain in China. So we have the country code, top level domain is the one at the far left, far right, as you know. And then you have sometimes a second level domain in some countries, like in Egypt you have .com.eg, and in China you have net.cn, com.cn, and.cn. So this is a third level domain. Barbero will be on the left of this dot. And this is another guy offering me for $2,500 this domain registration. Would you believe it? Well, this is an abuse ongoing on emails. What about spam? This is pure spam. This is an imitation of a watch, advertising you, and maybe you can sell it. Phishing. Phishing is another interesting kind of phenomenon, booming in many countries and in many fields. The most targeted is a bank. So many of you receiving, I thought I should take the liberty to use the Wikipedia the definition, but just to have an idea of the phishing as a criminal fraudulent process attempted to acquire information about yourself. And these are really sometimes, as we see some examples in the future, tempting. This is an example of a phishing. My UK company does bank with Barclays. I received this email to the email dedicated address to the accounting activities, accountant at Barbero UK, using the trademark, the logo, the color of Barclays. With this security alert, come on, let's face the level of attention that many of us have when we receive this tons of email. No bank will ever tell you, do click here. But think about the average person. Think about the distracted person. Think about someone who can say, okay, this is a security alert. Yeah, maybe last time I was going online, I was having some problem. Let's click here. If you do click, you either get malware, it has software installed in your computer that will be harming your computer, or they get your data. They typically ask you to log in to your bank details. Never do it. Never. But you know, think about it. There are plenty of examples. This is even another example, which even, I would say, more confusing for a user. If you're a taxpayer in a country and you receive an email from Her Majesty Revenue and Custom email address with domain name hmrc.gov.uk, which seems to be the one, as you know, it's a domain for government in the UK, is that one, and telling you that, well, you have underreported income and maybe, you know, prosecuted for a fraud. Come on, you can get tempted to go online and get this domain name, which seems to be the original one, and see what's going on. Another phishing activity. So always think twice. I know the level of attention of many of us reading this kind of emails is low, but please do pay attention. There are many, many attempts to get our data, and which is similar. So this is an example again in Italian, but this is the equivalent of a post office offering large numbers of people small accounts. You go to the post office, you open an account, there you go. And so there was a flaw, and there still is, a kind of emails linking to websites like this one. And again, think about the level of the people using this account, which is low. And of course, it's a mass kind of account. It's not that you have your millions there, you have your $100 that you do on a daily basis to pay your bills. So it's possible that it's, and so here they were even asking the username, password, and they even was explaining that sometimes can be a fraud, so watch out. There are some bad people doing this, and you should be careful. We are honest, and you should provide your data to us, but there might be people telling you what to do. So how to, well, this is another example as well. I'm sorry, it's in Italian, but to tell you that it's not going, how to spot it is easy, but you have to pay attention. You have to simply put your browser on the link there, and you see something coming up. If you don't see here the domain name which is reproduced there, it's a scam, it's a phishing. So, in general, no bank will ever tell you to do something. If you receive an information from Her Majesty Revenue and Custom, make sure that once you click on the link, you see the actual domain name, you don't see a number, because that is going to be probably phishing. Another good example, very recent, I mean, this is ongoing, it's not that stop. This is sorry, it's again in Italian, that's what I received the most, but this is the correspondent to Vodafone or the SAT in Egypt, sending you that you have to have access to your TIM, telecom mobile system, and then you go. You get linked here, and it seems to be the telephone company. They might check what my SIM card has got. But pay attention to the domain name. The domain name is this one. You see TIM there? Yep. Therefore, it's not them. Domain name is a very good system to find out whether we're sending you the message is reliable or not. And that's why a lot of pirates do register domain names which are identical or confusingly similar to trick us, to trick all of us into believing that they are really connected with this business. And this is another example. 12:29, shall we stop here for lunch? Is it? No? We can, well, but I'm following the schedule.
On the schedule it was 12:30.
12:30, yeah.
Okay, to be at 1.
Okay.
Perfect. We are flexible in this kind of presentation. So, phishing on Facebook. This is another good example. Who is using Facebook here? Who is not using Facebook? Right. Okay. I'm using it. I'm in between. I'm using it for work, but trying to stay awake a little bit. Okay. So, who is not having some friend coming from the past say, hey, let's get connected. Let's say your friends, and had the Lorna coming back from the child. Laura. Who the heck would this Laura comes from my past? But you go to many congresses, you meet people, there must be a Laura in the past. So you're curious, aren't you? Who can this Laura be? And by the way, if you want to see who is the Laura behind it, you have to have access to your Facebook page, your Facebook account. So you typically end up in a page like this. Okay, this is it. So I use my email and password, and I log in, so I see which Laura is coming from my past. Isn't it? Wrong. Look at this. Dark Linux account. Is it Facebook? No. But this does look as Facebook, doesn't it? It's the same color. Let's say use a trademark here. So, just to give you an idea how bad this can be, had I not paid attention, I don't know what this, I had done it as a work activity on a daily basis, I probably would have placed my email address and my password, my account, to see all my contacts and act to disclose all my personal information that I have in my Facebook account, to see all my friends there, my profile, my information that I try to close as circles, as in the privacy setting. Everything's going to be there. So this is a problem. Domain names are important to help you with this as well. And of course, if you click on it, you got this is antivirus telling that there was a URL. This was actually a Trojan software installed in your computer and using this computer to send emails as a spam to a lot of people. Bad stuff. So, okay, this is banners. The use of the trademarks in internet is as well very much a banner. So if you want us to read a newspaper for free, you have to get some advertising around it. Tough luck, but that's the rule of internet. You get something for free, you have to pay for it via reading the banners around, or getting, this is as well in New York Times as well, or getting the pop-up windows, which is basically covering your screen for a given amount of time, and basically exposing you to the advertising there. So this is what is happening, and more this is led by AdWords. Who's familiar with AdWords? You are? Good. Someone else? Okay, when you do a search on Google or on any basically search tool, what do? You type your trademark or the stuff you're searching for, and you get a page like this one. Now, it's basic, of course, but you get sponsor links on the right side or even on the top that you don't realize very much because they're somehow hidden. But those are the ads triggered by the AdWords. Basically the advertiser paying Google in order to have their ads or their links in a higher position of the search engine, which is perfectly fine as long as you don't use trademarks of third parties. For instance, this was an example of a company, Enomatic, which was having a competitor producing a similar thing. As it was a wine dispenser. You see in some bars, you go there with a glass and you get a wine. And the brilliant competitor, based in Far East, thought that by the AdWords corresponding to a trademark of a competitor would help to get business, which in fact did, because they were first in the link. And of course, the cost of the AdWords, depending on big as a company. So this is an example. So if you want to buy Maserati, you have to pay €0.5, which is about 50 cents or pounds for each time you want to get access to it. So, and in this way, one company called Jaguar was having the first results from Maserati. Odd enough, wasn't it? You search for Maserati and you get as a first result Maserati Jaguar of GT. This is not used on the internet and the use of AdWords. So, and if you're a Maserati buyer, you can end up here and say, well, what about Jaguar instead? Maybe not everyone would have changed their mind, but at least they would have get exposed to that product, which could be good. And there's a series, and some others, of course, are using this technique. What about the AdSense system? AdSense is another technique it is very much used on the internet. So you have a domain name which is similar to a trademark or even generic ones. And Google is asking you, may I have some of your space? I'll pay you for whomever is clicking on any links that I place in this area of your website. So basically, Google pays you to have perfumespecials.com as a domain name, also on your website, and therefore you would have this kind of AdSense paid by Google. This is the scheme which is perhaps making the scheme even more clear. On AdWords, the advertiser is paying Google. In the AdSense is the publisher domain being paid by Google, by the advertiser. And we're talking about millions of dollars. It's not a small amount. But this gives you an idea on how important it is to take care of this. How important it is to keep an eye on what's going on. And before lunch, let's go to see how some of the companies are using the trademarks online via the dedicated website. So, this is basically the website of Maserati. And you have Maserati.com as a main domain. You have Campari.com, likewise, Benetton.com, showing that .com is very important. But it's not the only one. For instance, a company like Nestlé is using a strategy to have a protection of the trademarks online, which is very much organized according to the different brands. They have many brands, thousands of registration. Those are some of the main ones. And for each and every one of these main trademarks, they have a domain names protection to have their online presence reflecting the trademark. This is an example. Nestlé.com is an umbrella website. But then you have as well Nescafe.com, a brand name, having a .com as a main presence. Purina.com likewise, Purina.com likewise. And then you have for each and every sub-brand of Purina, as the corresponding domain names. How they are going to deal with this kind of issues with a new generator platforms, in your view?
You would think of this way?
Well, thinking about all these brands times 1,000 top-level domains. How, if you were to decide on the brand manager in Nestlé, how would you tackle this issue?
I think they could think of not Nestlé. How would they take everything on in their own?
Right. So basically, you would focus your registration on the top-level domain generic, somehow skipping on the rest. Any other ideas? Well, there is no one right answer to this question, and this is certainly a good approach. You focus on one top-level domain, and you forget about the rest. But of course, on the rest, a lot can be going on. On the rest, a lot of people having bad intentions can be present. But it's really a complex issue, and we're developing by talking about this. That is a complex issue on one side. There is no one correct answer on how to handle it. But certainly it's posing for IP attorneys and IP owners a lot of new issues. The opening of new generative domains, which are, of course, needed because we need to expand the presence of online, which is a perfectly legitimate issue. On the other hand, of course, you have to be careful on how you can expand this presence. And it was mentioned already, the issue of a trademark in-house, which was helping it. You had a registration of a trademark, you could obtain validation of your trademark by a trademark in-house. In a new generic declared domains, add the so-called sunrise period. During sunrise, only the owner of the trademark, having the trademark registered in the trademark in-house, could have registered the domain name. So in this way, if you had the decision in mind to forget about those, no problem. You simply skip the sunrise and maybe monitoring what was going on the new generative domains, let's say hotel, in the future. But on some other cases, you could have registered in as the first one because you had this trademark in-house registration. So this is an important way and a way to sort of limit the dimension of problem for trademark attorneys and IP owners online in the new generic governance environment. But still, it is there. If you have to handle this kind of portfolio of domain names, how can you possibly manage 1,000, let's say only 6,000 or 500 registrations per brand? Impossible, right? So that's why now we're taking the decision, we are analyzing the issue to see that the presence online can be different in the future in light of new generic, but still has to be a problem to be analyzed and carefully examined on this level. And this is an issue that more and more many of our clients or people working in the field will have to face. Let's address it like this way. Yes?
Yeah, I was going to ask, because you raised an interesting point about the trademark clearinghouse. And, you know, with this example, like, you know, hundreds or maybe more trademarks that are owned by one company like Nestle or others. Now, if they go and register their trademarks with the trademark clearinghouse,
yep,
they would get protection during the sunrise period of the new GTAs. And maybe just to clarify for those who might not know, the sunrise period is a period of time that allows trademark owners and IP owners priority over others. So the new GTLD like .2, you know, they're launching their service next month. They're going to have maybe the first 30 days, 45 days, like, you know, 30 days sunrise. This is only for trademarks, for those who have legal rights in the names to register their names. Now, once this period is over, and this is here my question because I'm not sure, as an owner of the trademark, do I still hold any legal rights on the name? If I just, you know, if I pass the sunrise and I decided not to register the name, do I still have any legal rights on
Of course. Of course, you always have legal rights because you can always enforce your trademarks online. And we'll see in the next presentation one of the main tools to enforce these rights, which is the UDP, Uniform Distribution Policy, which applies to all the new generic declared domains. But certainly during the sunrise period is a time in which the trademark clearinghouse tells you, as actually, let's do one step backward. You may have in a trademark clearinghouse even identical trademarks. Recall the example of Fiesta. So both Fiesta owned by Ford and Fiesta owned by Ferrero could have been applied to the trademark clearinghouse, and both would have been admitted to this list of trademark, valid registered trademark, and get this accreditation with the trademark clearinghouse. Accreditation is not a correct word, but basically get this sort of stamp. You have a trademark registration. So you can therefore participate to the sunrise period, and if both Ford and Fiesta would have participated in the sunrise of that new generic domains, both of them would have received a trademark notice telling, well, Ford is applying for Fiesta dot whatever, and Ferrero is applying for Fiesta Ferrero typically. Once this sunrise period is over, and in this period, not only the trademark holders receiving this notice, but also a third party. If I would have applied for Fiesta during the sunrise period, I could not have done it because I did not have a trademark. But after the sunrise, which was reserved to Ford and Fiesta, I could have applied to Fiesta dot whatever, if nor Ferrero nor Ford would have already registered it. So it's still available. In that case, I would receive a notice. Look, you're registering Fiesta.com. Are you aware of the fact? And I can show you maybe after the lunch. I'll put some slides so to tell you what is going to be the notice. Because in this way you receive a trademark notice, whereby you are advised that this is a registered trademark. It's a trademark protected within the trademark clearinghouse list. In this way, I am aware that Fiesta is a trademark of Ford and of Ferrero. If I say, I don't care, I do register it, well, I'm technically already in bad faith because I received this notice. And if I go ahead and I do register it, then Fiesta owned by Ferrero and Fiesta owned by Ford can be enforced against me because, of course, they are valid trademark at any time. And it would be even easier for them to enforce their rights in the new generic domains in light of the fact they could tell, well, you, Luca, have received a notice from the trademark clearinghouse that this was a registered trademark. But in any way, you can enforce the trademarks. Okay? Provided that you're infringing, of course, a registered valid.
But after the sunrise period,
Yes.
it's always through a dispute procedure.
Correct.
So it's not as easy, and also the timing
Right.
for the process
So,
itself. It's,
Sunrise, unless you're a trademark, you cannot register.
yeah, but
Afterwards,
it's
first
a
come, first served.
dispute procedure, and
Absolutely.
you have to go through it, and
It varies on the registry, because of course now we have hundreds of registry. Some are registered like a Donuts, which was a company applying for over 300 new generative domains. Thinking about placing a pot, $185,000 times 300. Make some calculation. This is a kind of company who did this application for different extensions. They applied an interesting system, which is called a sort of protection, whereby you could pay a fee to the registry, and this fee would basically impede to any other subject not having rights on that trademark to register even after the sunrise. But this is an exception to the rule. Many other registries, not having this done protection listed, would simply go on a first come, first served basis. So in that case, you would have to apply then the procedure that we're going to discuss at this afternoon and tomorrow to enforce the rights on the internet. So the balance and the strategy should always be considering the fact that if you don't register it in an extension which can be of interest for you, then you may have the trouble to reclaim it. In light of the numbers, sometimes though, you simply say, well, you know what, I'll monitoring it and checking what's going on the website, and then decide whether to enforce it or not down the line. So the strategy we see then in the slides afterwards is really changing now, because one thing is discussed about 22 generated domains plus 280 country code, some of them having already requirements limiting the possibility to infringe the trademarks right there, and one thing is to think about 1,000 extensions. The strategy is changing. So let's conclude maybe having some initial looks on how the domain name can reflect the trademark and how can be used. Nesquik is having this page for children. Nesquik-club.com, you can all read it well, but it's up here. And this is a website where children can go and download wallpaper and everything. Nesquik-club.com. What about Nesquik without an S? So this is Nesquik Club. You add one S and you end up on this kind of web page. Absolutely, absolutely. And think about this, something you have to have in mind. This is a website for children. Yeah, Nesquik. And there was a person who was so, I wouldn't say a bad word, but not a nice person, let's say, to register this kind and having this kind of website linked to it. I'd like to imagine what's behind this. Yeah, I won't show it. But this is an example of a collection of links that you have on this website with only one S of difference. Sometimes it's possible to have one S wrong. So this is basically, or this is another example of Ferrari.com.br in Brazil, top level domain name. This is a good example because it's a double violation of the Ferrari trademark and the Burago, which is a company producing smaller cars. So in this way, you see they were using a top level domain on a third level, so on a .com.br, for advertising fake models produced by another car of Ferrari. Double violation is a good example. No, it's not there anymore. But you would think that only commercial companies would be subject of this kind of attention by pirates. Well, actually, it's not true. Law firms, I took law firms to play in the house. This is organlobels.com. If you take away only the Hogan, because originally it was only Lobel, and you take away one L, there you go, a collection of interesting links. Or Allen Overy, another large IP firm worldwide. If you take away one L, Allen Overy, you end up in a nice collection of pay-per-click links. We'll see them later, what the pay-per-click link is. And Clifford Chance, last example before the lunch, you take away one F and you end up in this fantastic collection of companies not related to the law firm. So, I think that is a good time to stop now for having our lunch together, unless you have some questions. And then when we come back fresh after lunch, we'll deal with social media issues more in depth. Any questions before lunch? Yes.
You said that registration on someone's registering a domain, it has been, the owners of the trademark receives a message.
Yes.
Does that mean that every registration has to be checked from the trademark?
No, only the one which are registered in the trademark claims, trademark claim house entity, which was a company established for registered domains. And this registration of trademark claim house is done on the voluntary basis by trademark owner. So it is not that it's being checked by the entity, it's being checked by trademark claim house who receive the application in this initial phase. And therefore,
the trademark owner registers himself as a trademark house
and pays a fee
to be checked,
to be receiving
informed when
exactly, to be informed about this. But this is only limited to the identical correspondence. So if there's one letter difference, they don't get any correction. And that's why you have to have the monitoring services, which is going to be part of the presentation on tomorrow between 11 and 1 o'clock.
Okay. But every registration is checked against by the trademark.
If it is registered in house and apply the new generic requirements, yes.
In any one of
First come, first served.
no, I mean in any of the generic compatible domains. If it is checked.
It is checked by the register, by the generic in house, yes. Because it's the software whereby the application during the Any other question? Everyone's angry now. So I'll see you at 2? Yeah, we'll postpone it to Perfect. Lovely. Thanks so much. We left more of me later on, for the last part.